The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
To live in LA, West Side, West Side, West Side. To live and die in LA, where everybody try to fatten their pocket. So many hustle for the cash, so it's hard to knock it. Everybody got their own thing, currency chasing. Worldwide through the hard times, worrying faces. Shed tears as we bury brothers close to heart. What was a friend now?
Well, hello. God bless you, community family, and welcome to Gang Talk. We're in studio tonight. As you can see, Skipp is not with us this evening because, Skipp is doing such great things. The more you do, the more they want. And so they're cutting in our schedule with him. But because he is so serious about what he does, he gives them other things that they ask him for. So we so respect Skipp for staying with us for all the years that we've been doing this 30 minutes to an hour with our community family about this very specific topic. So in his absence, we want to welcome General Jeff for coming in and sitting in for him.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Hey, thank you for showing up.
Shout out to Skipp. Appreciate you. I ain't trying to take your spot. I'm just keeping the seat warm.
He ain't worried about that. And, the one thing about Skipp and I, we appreciate men that have no problem speaking on the issues. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is about, for us to communicate with each other about the things that are important to us. So it's a gift and a blessing to find you, and to even more to have you available to sit in. And so
thank you for having me.
We really appreciate that about you.
Honored to be here, indeed. Anytime.
Okay. All right. And then the second thing, we want to thank our guests. We always thank our guests from last week. And it was such an outstanding hour with our young people. We had 12-year-old Leah,
nice.
Maya, who contacted us actually last year by phone. And then it turned out that 12-year-old Aaliyah became a guest on the show. And we wanted a mentor, one of our women that's been through the system, to talk to her. And it turned into a telephone conversation because the mentor, Petra Fontilla, had to take her mother to emergency, but she still took the time to call the show and talk to Leah.
Nice.
And so it was exceptional to have them have a face-to-face on the show, have that conversation last week. It was outstanding.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And then we had little 9.5 Sophia. She joined us in the last few minutes to our conversation with schoolyard threats, bullying, that kind of thing. How do you handle it? And Petra is she teaches anger management now. She's been through the system.
Okay.
She talks very candidly about what got her in the system and the fact that at that time she thought she was having fun. That's the way she expressed it. I was just trying to have fun, but I didn't realize how serious that fun was until they closed that cell door behind me. See, wow. And so we like it when our family are candid about their history, have learned something from it, and unafraid to share it with the next generation. Right. That's what made that so special. And then Marcus Woods came down and provided the co-hosting for us. Yes, he's working out of San Bernardino now, so he's unable to come every week like he used to when he started. But he's working with the kids up there, and they're doing great things. And my position is this is where the major work belongs, is with the young people. So we want to thank them for coming last week, and we're just going to get in the show tonight because, we always have an agenda. Always have an agenda.
Always.
And this young man here has been part of that, and we just want him to take a moment to introduce himself and tell you anything he wants you to know.
Well, first of all, much thanks for allowing me to be here with you all again. This is my first time being here with you, brother, but it's a pleasure nonetheless.
Likewise.
Sister Herron, it's always a pleasure, and I'm always grateful to be here amongst such a woman that gives so much of herself to my community, in which, my grandmother is 92, my aunt's 97. They were both born here in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. This is my home. My bloodline has been running these streets for over 100 years, so what goes on in them is very much important to me. So to be able to have this particular discussion with you all is always an honor to be here. So with that, I am Attorney Jaaye Person-Lynn. I mainly practice criminal defense law as well as some civil rights, personal injury, maybe some baby mama and daddy drama, but not too much family law. And I'm...
let me say affectionately, you're called the Lincoln lawyer.
The Lincoln lawyer, yeah.
Yes.
And I drive a Lincoln.
Yeah.
American made.
We love that about you. We love that about you.
Hey, man.
As I was saying before we came on the air, we don't have access. We don't see enough African-American attorneys in this city, and certainly not in our community. Yeah. So you're the 5-star up at the top.
I appreciate that, but definitely want you to know there's so many more of us. There's like right now, if anybody follows the NBA, then they know like the 2003 draft with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James.
Right.
That was Carmelo Anthony. That was an amazing draft.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what's going on in the black legal community in Los Angeles right now. From my partner Rodney Diggs at Ivy McNeil and Wyatt, I got the brothers at Roberts Sanders or Sanders Roberts. I forget. But Justin Sanders out there of downtown, Palmer Fowler, young black men whose office is in Long Beach, Kevin Mahoney, whose office is also in Long Beach, MahoneyLaw.net. And and that's not it. Sias and Carr right here in Leimert Park. There's so many of us right now.
Well, as we joked.
Yeah,
we joke.
Yeah.
You guys don't do TV commercials.
That's true. That's true.
How are we going to know them unless they make themselves present? Where we can see them, where we can have access to them.
Exactly. So all y'all heard that. So we got to get our marketing game up. Because Sister Herron want people to know we here.
That's right. And this is a good place for them to show their faces. And we would be happy to post their information because, we have a need for legal counsel.
There is, in a real way, and it's the reason why it's more important in the black community. It's important in every community, but it's most important in the black community when in terms of liberty, because we are the only community, right, that they actually had to make a constitutional amendment to say you can't lock us up just for being black.
Right.
But it's very important that we always remember in that constitutional amendment, the 13th Amendment, it says slavery nor involuntary servitude, except when someone is duly convicted of a crime, shall be legal inside the United States, so on and so forth. So we have to know that the slavery, what we call slavery, that for all intents and purposes ended in 1865, which was just us, maybe a little later, but with black people being slaves because they're black. Okay, I'll say that part is over, but slavery never ended. Right now, slavery is going on, and I don't think we understand that. And I just recently came to that realization, even though before I've said I'm an abolitionist and I believe that, but now I really believe it. I really know it to be the case because it really came real to me that, wow, this is, as long as I'm convicted of a crime, I can be a slave. Having a job of trying to keep people from being convicted of a crime literally makes me an abolitionist. Absolutely. I'm trying to end slavery.
Right. Well, to add in your point about that, Marcus served 17 years for an offense he didn't commit.
Yeah.
So they put him right in chains with no problem. Just say, tag, you're it. Come this way, get in this cell. And at 17, At 17, they convicted him of that crime he did not commit, and he gave the state 17 years of his life. So what you're talking about is very real.
Yeah.
It's very serious.
Yeah.
And actually, today we're finding more men getting freed than ever before in my history, because they also were convicted for crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah, and just so people understand the numbers in California, state of about, I don't know, it always goes up. So let's say 37 million, right? Of that 37 million, 6% of the people in the state are, about 6.5% of the people in the state are black people.
Right.
About 3% of the people in the state are black men. So, and when we look at the prison population, there's 125,000 prisoners in the state of California, roughly. 6,000 of those 125,000 are women. 119,000 of those 125,000 are men. Now, of those 119,000, 29% are black men. Now, we only make up 6% of the men in the state, but we make up 29% of the men in the prison population.
Yes.
But what that means, 6% of 119,000, it's maybe 7,000, 8,000. But
That's a lot of
29% of, and that's how many should be if it was equal per capita,
balance,
right?
yeah.
But 29% of 119,000, we're talking like 33,000, 34,000 people.
Right.
And when you look at that, it's like, wow, it should be, let's say 8,000, but it's 33,000. That's 25,000 extra lives.
Yes.
And when you think about that number, to where if those 25,000 men made an average of $40,000 a year, that'd be $1 billion coming to the black community a year.
Well, look, let me just put that thorn in this mind thought. See, because the whole point, once you go in prison, you're not going to be a $40,000 wage earner anymore. You're going to have to get some kind of specific skill that allows ex-offenders to work freely. See, because my opinion has been they put that choke chain on you.
Yeah.
Once you go in the lockup, you got a choke chain on you. And when you come out under probation or parole, the choke chain stays on you, and they get to pull it back with any little provocation. They get to pull it back and put you in lockup. So when do you really get freed to become that $40,000 wage earner, and how do you get there with that record?
Well, with the record, you like you said, we need a skill.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we have to promote more broadly in our community much before they get a record. Yes. Because if I'm a young man who, I know school isn't for me, I couldn't sit through high school, I know I'm not about to sit through college.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, well, they need to know that there's another avenue to make just as much money as they would be making on the streets. And
legally.
So, I have a friend, Leonard Redway from LRS Plumbing. You might see the trucks with the faces of the brothers on the side of the trucks going throughout the city, talking about they're changing the way you view plumbers and made themselves the sexy plumber.
They are. They are. And I'm so proud of them. I really am.
And last year, at 38 years old, well, I was 34, Leonard was 38, but I went to his retirement party, and we're at the top of the Century, the top of the City Club downtown. Century Club.
Flashback.
Yeah, but we're at the top of the City Club. Roland Martin was the MC, and this man, 38 years old, got us all fly on the top of the City Club in tuxedos, retiring because while he was in high school, he got his credentials to be a plumber, so he was making money while he was in high school and every day since, without incurring the debt that college sometimes forces us to incur, or we choose to incur that debt to get the degree, which is sometimes a good investment, right?
Nothing wrong with that investment. It's expensive, but there's nothing wrong with that investment if you're motivated.
Yeah, and you're and you have a plan to make it back, right? It is. So, with that being said, those stories need to be promoted. Yeah. Because if it's college, or sell drugs, and that's or rob or jack, and those are the only options that you see, college or crime, and they know they're not good at college.
And they're not good at crime either because they end up in lockup. That's a big joke on us. They tell you, oh yeah, you can get away with this. No, you can't. No, you can't. And the hurtful part for me too is how many black men are serving time for marijuana. And then we just made marijuana legal in the state of California. So my estimation is that all of those records deserve to be expunged.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, we have some ways to go with that, but I think we will get there.
Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate point I wanted to make was that young men need to know, that young black men need to know, the part of history of slavery that we can be proud of is that we built the strongest nation in the world. Yes. Our work is proven. Yes. So if we do the work on our own volition, we can get paid for it, and we can charge a high amount. Those LRS brothers are not cheap. They're not extremely expensive, but they're not cheap. But I'm a customer. Their work is sufficient. It's beyond sufficient. So we have that ability to do that with our hands, and America is the proof of that.
Yes.
And we should take pride in that, and now we can work for ourselves as hard as our ancestors suffered through working for the slave masters, but we can reap the benefits unlike our ancestors.
So let me say this, though. So now we have a lot of youth who you're talking about that as they're still trying to figure it out. So, when they're 16, 17, 15, 16, 17, they graduate from high school, they still haven't figured it out. Right. And then they say girls mature faster than boys. And so now we're talking about 24, 25, 26. Some cats even get to 30. They still haven't figured it out. Yeah. So, it sounds good that, if they figured it out at 16, 17 and got into a trade or, they determined, the fork in the road, is it going to be, college, high school, trade, or something else? That's not the reality. And so that's where the systemic oppression comes into place, and then the diversion of society between social media, entertainment, and just, basically the glorification of, the American dream gets in the way of American realities. And, there are not enough black role models that actually penetrating into the schools and being seen in the communities and actually leading and keeping it 100, as we say on the streets, and letting these youngsters know, like all that what you're talking about ain't what you got to pick something and stick to that first.
Let me add something here. See, because this too is my birthplace, and my father relocated as he ran away from Louisiana at 16. So he came out to California knowing he had a sense of self-responsibility. If I'm going to be a runaway, how am I going to feed myself and these kind of things? So the men in his generation, this is how they survived segregation. They had a job skill. They didn't just have a job. A job was meaningless because it was segregation, it was racism running all over the place. But what saved the black man in those years was his skill. And from mechanic to plumber to electrician. My father was a mechanic, a plumber, and an electrician, but he was self-taught. And especially in the mechanics. He wasn't proficient at it, but he knew what a battery was and, that kind of thing. And I'm making light of it, but that's the difference in his generation and these kids now. They knew they had to have something. As you said, these kids now, they haven't figured it out what they want. Yeah. And it's unfair to leap over the devastation that happened to their community, where our young people have lost their imagination for their future. They've lost their imagination. And you put it so clearly, drug dealer or job. Drug dealer or job. And these are the kinds of choices that our young men have been forced to make.
Nope.
And it's been based on the neighborhoods they live in. You've had to align with that neighborhood. Whether you sold drugs or not, you were still aligned with the element you lived in. So it's been unfair to them, and that's one of the reasons why I don't blame them for it, because they were born into this. Where when I was born into a black man having a skill.
Yeah,
That was that, and that's when my parents pushed me. You better know something if you're going to take care of yourself, little girl.
Now, when you're talking about, them losing, the desire or not even being exposed to it,
Right.
and
It's exposure.
right, and so when they talk about the blame, I blame the school curriculum because I feel that the kids need to be exposed to real life, at an earlier age. It doesn't make sense for kids to become parents and then have problems with the kids in raising the kids and then have to be punished and have to take parenting classes. Like, parenting classes should be part of the school curriculum because the majority of the folks is going to be parents anyway. So a lot of kids don't even know how to change diapers before they have kids. And but my whole thing is, so when we have lawyers like, the brother right here, it's like, I think we need to put consider putting together a class action lawsuit to change the school curriculum so that we can put trade and expose the kids to more of reality in the school curriculum before they get to that fork in the road when they graduate from high school.
Understood. Yeah, and I agree that the vocational education could use young black men would benefit the most, I think, from a insurgence of the
I'm going to take it a
vocational
little
education.
further. I think African American men in the school system need to be elevated just because of who they are and the challenges they face. They need special treatment. I mean, really, the best classes, the best education. This is where we've fallen behind because our schools have failed us. And they failed us because they haven't been concerned. They let the worst teachers stay that would stay, because it became, well, I don't want to work in the war zone. Okay. Right. And then we became all kinds of derogatory things. The teachers didn't want to come and teach us. And then we got pushed out due to overcrowding from the migration. And so I remember the years when there were so many kids going to the schools in this district. There weren't many seats available. And there was so many in this overcrowding that they issued this thing called a certificate of completion. It didn't mean you graduated.
Right.
It didn't mean you achieved all your school credits. It was just a certificate of completion to get your undereducated behind out of that classroom.
Right.
And bring in the next wave that's going to be undereducated as well. So, not due to anything that was their fault, the system failed them. And I agree with you, but I want that special uplifting for the African American male because he's the one that's on the pipeline straight to prison, not to work, not to college, but to that cell.
And remember, those numbers are quoted are people in prison right now. We're not talking about the people who were formerly incarcerated. So those numbers probably get us as far as black men in the hundreds of thousands. And that's a segue, a great segue, I think, to what I came to speak about, which is the Second Amendment as it relates to the black community. Because what those numbers mean, if we're now breaking it down, we're 3% of 37 million. Okay, that's like 1.2, 1.3 million, right? So now, of all the black males in the state, now at least 30% of those are going to be children. Right. So now we're down to, let's say like 800,000. So if we got 100,000 of those who are prohibited from owning firearms because they have a conviction, now our community is down to, a few 100,000 men who are supposed to be the protectors of these millions of people. Because, 6% of 3.7 million. It's going to be a couple million. So that makes it real difficult for us, right? And then the fact of the matter is there's a reason why we have a Marines, a Navy, an Army, an Air Force, a Coast Guard. Not every soldier is front line, right? So not every black man's going to be somebody that's going to have a gun, even if they are protected. They just might not be gun guys.
And black men are not going in the military. Not since Vietnam.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
It's not something that normally that we've been volunteering for. And the truth is, once they eliminated the draft, the military got very selective. And so if you had a gang tattoo or a tattoo, they could tell you yes or no, you cannot join the service because of your tattoo. And I know very few, not a lot, but use the military to escape the threat and drama in their community.
Yeah.
But even in the military, they brought that street anger with them.
Yeah.
You know, and it cost them their military career because they met somebody else in the military just as angry as they were, and there was a big old fight, and folks got hurt, and then they got kicked out.
But let me touch on the point that you were just making about the roles, the different roles. That when you talk about the different military institutions and the equivalent to that, what we need in the black community. I've actually talked to brothers on the streets, different streets in different parts of L.A., and there was a reoccurring theme, like their own ideology was saying like, oh, I like the way the communism is. They assign you like, this is what you're going to be. That we need more of this. You're not going to do that. You're going to do this. So they can already off top know their numbers they're going to have enough of whatever they need to advance as a society. So looking at that, and if we mimic that, how would we determine? Because if everybody says, okay, we're all going to want to be this, while everybody doesn't qualify to carry a gun, okay, there are other roles to play within the black community and from the protecting our communities and our families. Like who decides what roles to play, and then how do you ensure that there's going to be enough balance so that's a successful effort?
Yeah, and to do that, it comes down and breaks down to organization, and that's what's lacking in whether we're talking about schools, family, gangs, or what we have the constitutional right to create, which are militias. Right now, that's something I think that would be we'd be able to explore, because if you are now exercising your constitutional right to be in a well-trained and well-organized militia, then does your statutory limitation on you bearing a firearm, is that outweighed by your constitutional right to be a militiaman? But it only comes from being organized, right? Yeah. If I'm just from Inglewood Family Bloods, I don't have
no
the right, and I'm a felon. I don't have the right to carry. But
even if you're not a felon, a black man in this country does not have the right to carry a gun, to be seen in public, not in the presence of law enforcement. That's a dissent.
Well, what I say is we have the right.
We're supposed to.
It's no, we have it. It's just consistently and constantly violated.
Yes,
but we have the right, and that's what we have to start thinking about is what we actually have. What power do we actually have? Because whether we're talking the school system, police, whatever, what power do we have to change that, right? Like, we could go to the police commission meetings, we could yell all day, but what power do we have to change the police? We don't really have a lot of power to change the police. Not now. No. Now, we do have the power to organize ourselves, and if we organize ourselves and the LAPD thought, man, if in this community they see some young black men up against the wall, I know people are going to stop and see what's going on. Yeah. Right. And I'm going to be scrutinized. So I need to be well aware. Now, to add to that, if these people are trained and armed who are stopping and scrutinizing me, now I'm really going to keep my act on par. So when they come by, it's like, hey, there was a warrant on this car. This is why we pulled them over. Okay, officer, you doing your job. We just here to watch. Right. But if you can't explain why these young men are up against the wall, then you need to let them go. Right. But why do I have to let them go? What are you going to do? ain't gonna do nothing.
Videotape you with our cell phone to make sure these kids get away from here alive.
That's not doing nothing. It's doing something. I'm not gonna say it's not doing nothing. Yeah. It's doing something, but that's not making them change.
No, it's
that's
not.
It
only
making them
protects
change.
that child at that moment. And I really want to encourage the youth. This is what we used to do. The police were so foul in Los Angeles. We turned into the witness. We're going to stand and watch, and it was usually a crowd of us in the 65 era. That was our practice. The police stopped. Everybody stopped to watch, and that was the issue. They were doing the chokehold. We want to make sure whoever that is you're detaining gets out of this alive. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see it has changed. Now we're becoming a witness again. Now we have the cell phones we're using as a silent witness, it's verified, and turning into witnesses again for the same reason, to make sure that whoever they're detaining gets away from that alive. And this is the thing that concerns me. You talk about the Second Amendment, and I agree. We're supposed to have the right. But a black man with a gun is dead meat.
Well,
really?
I mean, be
honest about it. Come on, tell me.
No, I agree. I mean, the evidence is clear, right? Whether you thought it was a wallet, you shot him. Yeah. Whether you thought it was a cell phone, you shot him. When he told you it was a gun and it was legal, so now that should have put you at ease. Like, hey, this person told me he has a gun. He's law-abiding. He has to reach for something, right? What you're saying in practice has been the case, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also been a number. I'm in a number of groups of black gun owners and educators, National African American Gun Association, the Bobby Seale Gun Club. I'm in a Black Gun Owners of America, or Black Gun Owners Association, BGOA. I'm in a number of groups, and people post and these issues come up. So there are a number of circumstances where black people have gotten pulled over, have told the officers, because some states it's a lot easier, like a state like Texas, it's a whole lot easier for them to get their concealed carry permit, but they also have a duty to let an officer know when they come in contact. Yes. So that situation has come up a lot on the message boards, and it comes to find out that a number of people have had encounters with the officers where the officers knew they were armed, they just wrote them a ticket and got on. And so, that does happen. We don't want to discount that the system can work, and that the people who don't work, who do shoot people, are not functioning how the system is supposed to work. We want to be clear on that. And so what we're trying to do on May 19th, right here at the Fernando Pullum Community Arts Center, right around the corner, 3351 43rd Street, Los Angeles 9008, May 19th from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., we're going to have the full discussion, mainly because there is a national debate on the Second Amendment going on right now with the shooting in Parkland, Florida, Parkland High School. Very sad. But there's no but to that. It's very sad. There's no but to that. What I'm saying is the national discussion is not currently inclusive of the black voice. No. Right? They talk about violence in the black community. You hear that, black on black crime and all the killings in Chicago. These are, white liberal talking points, white conservative talking points, everybody's talking points, killings in Chicago, black on black crime. But the fact of the matter is the vast majority of those crimes or black people who are murdered by handguns. The vast majority, like in the 80s.
Unregistered handguns. I want to add that in because I get so frustrated when we have these arguments about Newtown with those poor little elementary school kids and Parkland and these high school kids. And, it's just outrageous, and I agree that something needs to be done about these paramilitary weapons, but this country is not interested in that. And the fact that I know that the majority of homicides that happen in my community are through unregistered weapons.
Yeah, definitely.
That person that killed Hannah Bell, that gun's not registered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in Chicago, they have talked about the just the downfall, the flood of weapons that come into that community unregistered.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the NRA in Parkland, we can't fit in that dialogue.
Right.
See,
Yeah,
because why aren't we attacking the NRA about these unregistered weapons that are flooding the streets of Chicago, that flooded my community? You know, it's a big joke on us that they're talking about, yeah, the NRA ought to do something. Well, we're not talking about those guns that killed Hannah Bell.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that at all.
And that's what's important. That's why we're having this discussion, right?
Okay.
Because your point is valid. I don't want any more laws.
Yeah.
Because all they going to do is lock up more black people.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I think there should be I think the Second Amendment is clear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I believe that means it shall not be infringed. And at the very least, whatever weaponry a civilian police force has, the civilians in that community should be allowed to have at the very minimum. So I look at all of California's gun laws. I don't think we should ever give up AR-15s, AK-47s. Why? What are we giving up? If we're talking about school shootings, since Columbine and mass school shootings in 1999 to 2018, we're talking about around 200 lives of mass shootings at schools. And when you add more like the movie theaters and whatnot, we're still talking about over a 19-year period, we're still talking about a few hundred lives. Now, there's 600 lives in L.A. County last year, 700-800 in Chicago. These are just two cities.
Right.
But once again, these are handguns, right? So why are we now going to give up the one tool that ensures our ability to fight back should our own government become oppressive or should a foreign government try to invade? Why would we give up that tool to protect ourselves when that's not even killing us? It's handguns that's killing us. So you want us to get behind your March for Lives saying, let's get rid of AR-15s. We don't need AR-15s, but rifles and shotguns, that's the only thing that ever ensured black people's freedom in this country. These are facts. The Civil War was fought with the highest level of weaponry they had at that time.
Right.
Without the Civil War, without those people using those guns, without them finally putting guns in black man's hand, like Glory, we watch Glory, we see that, we would not have that freedom. And we need to know that, but we also need to need to understand what you just said. We also need to understand the pain and the anguish and the trauma when people are unrighteously killed and murdered in these streets. So that's why we're having a discussion. I am 100%, if you check my Facebook last weekend, we were at the range and my family's, it's our family land. It's like 28 acres, so the range is wherever we decide to go shooting. And in that, we were out there for about 4 or 5 hours, man. I shot 10 different guns. We were letting out. We were blowing stuff up with tannerite, and, it's all legal. But we were. It wasn't just for fun. We were training. All of us, the 6-7 guys who were out there, even though some of them are military and are pretty well trained now, you still have to train. There's, whether you're taking gunshots or basketball shots or your golf shot or whatever, you got to train to continue to be good should you need to use that skill. So it was fun. We did have a good time, but safety's first. We're out there training, and it's a great feeling. It's because it's like, man, we on our land. Now we protected. If you come to our land, we'll be able to protect ourselves. It's a certain kind of feeling and a certain kind of freedom that is rarely felt.
Yes,
and I just want to say that, as a community activist, that's something that I've been putting forth to any brothers and sisters that I can get their ear. Because just like what you're saying, is like there's a certain psychological empowerment that happens, from us having, firearms and being able to feel that, in case if encroached upon, we can have that right
Protect
to defend ourselves. Absolutely. And our families. And so my whole thing is, as far as the black community, even if, you're not on probation or parole, you can go to a gun range and rent a gun and just let off a couple of rounds or some things. And so my whole thing is, if as much money as we spend, as I heard a whole lot of brothers and sisters going to the golf ranges and going bowling. I'm like, we need to be going to the gun range.
We need to go
to the gun range, because playing psychological warfare. If all of a sudden white America starts seeing, man, black folks is piling up into these gun ranges, they gonna start. That's gonna resonate a little bit, because a lot of these gun ranges, you got a lot of law enforcement officers and a lot of folks that communicate with law enforcement and with government, and when they see black folks is serious about their weaponry, and then especially when they pulling up the target and they zoom it back in, ooh, these brothers is accurate.
That's a tight group right there.
Beep. And so psychological warfare, that to me is a very necessary tool that we're not utilizing right now. And so being a part of all these gun clubs, that's imperative right now. If we can't own them, we can go borrow them and legally shoot. And I think that was in the resounding message over time, in terms of, to back these police up and all these laws and government officials, back them up off our community.
And the fact of the matter is, before the crack era, where the black community was a pretty cohesive community, people left their doors open on their cars, people left their doors open in their houses.
Right.
A lot of those, I don't know the numbers because they aren't there, but a lot of those families, every black person I know who's like 50 or 60 and up, they grew up, there was guns in the house when they grew up, just flat out. And nonviolence got promoted and shoved down our throat. And I'm okay with nonviolence. I don't think, I'm okay with nonviolence in the offensive, but if you bring violence to me, I'll probably still say, can we resolve this without violence? But once it's clear we can't, then we have to resolve it, and we have to speak to you in the language that you understand, as Malcolm X said.
Let me just mention the fact that the Black Panthers operated on the Constitution.
Yeah.
They operated within the letter of the Constitution to have weapons and registered weapons.
Yeah.
Okay? And because they stood on that, SWAT found a way to eliminate all of them.
Yeah.
You see? And this is the one thing I see as a continuing threat to the African American man. If you have a gun, they're going to kill you. If they see it on you, they've already proven it. And I can't not think about Alton Sterling, the street vendor in Louisiana, out here with a gun in his pocket for his self-protection, and ends up with the police killing him. Yeah. Okay, and so that seems to be the theme. If a black man, if you're running, or God forbid you got a gun in your hand, which is not usual. I haven't heard them killing the black man yet that had a gun on him, but a dang cell phone, or not cell phone, but some reason you're running, they execute you. And I'm using the word execute. Execute.
That's what it is.
So they make the decision right there on the spot. So if they see you with a gun,
they've already
it's a
made
death
the decision.
sentence.
They had the opportunity right there on the spot, and it's a narrative. You hear it. We saw it clearly in Sacramento.
Yes.
Once you heard it, you saw him go around, and it's like gun, 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 bah, 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 bah. And then the other guy yells gun, like a second later, gun, bah, bah. Well, the reason that has to happen is because if at least two cops don't shoot, then that looks like a bad shot. Because
what about Anthony Weber out here? Just a few months ago, 16-year-old Anthony Weber shot by the sheriffs.
I've heard of that. I'm not too familiar.
Well, that's
these
what
things
they
are traumatizing,
said.
man. You hear these enough. But we did see that video in Sacramento.
Yes.
We do know. Yes. And it's crazy, right? After they shoot him, now they want to wait 5 minutes to go up and see about him. But why you couldn't wait and see on the front end?
Yeah.
And you yelled gun, and we know for a fact you didn't see one.
That's similar in Skid Row. I'm a community activist in Skid Row, and in March 1st, 2015, Charlie Kanang, Brother Africa, they killed him in cold blood right in front of the mission.
Yeah.
He's homeless, sleeping in a tent right in front of the mission. Yeah. Police had prior contact with him, so they knew who he was, knew what he was about. They didn't send the SMART team, the mental health teams. And the video went viral. You see, they walked up on him, and he stop. messing with me. And the next thing you know, it turned into a little lightweight tussle. And then, they scuffed. They got him on the ground, and then out in somewhere, gun. What? Of course. Oh, that's the code word. That's the code bling, 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 bling. So then they slowed the videotape, and you go, frame by frame. And then you see, he, at one point, Tim, when he's swimming for his life because he's under attack, oh my God, you struggling to survive. And so, at one point in time, his hand touched the bottom of an officer's holster. But, the way that the holsters are designed, and I had gun experts, law enforcement experts send us videos saying it's impossible. You can't reach in, like if it's an officer standing for, I can't reach over and just take his gun out of his holster. The way the holster devices are, there's a certain button on the inside that automatically releases that if you're coming from the other side, your hand can't even release it just trying to reach in and snatch it out. Right. This is not the old school gun. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors in play. And so just because they hollering gun, like everybody took your gun, and so that's up in the street. That's why we got turned up. And his family suing the LAPD right now.
That's the same charge and excuse they used to kill Ezell Ford.
Right.
He was reaching for a gun. Come on now, you're on top of this boy. And the shame of that lie is that Newton already was familiar with Ezell.
Right.
They knew that he had talented. Right. And a lot of these officers would bring Ezell back home if he got lost and disoriented.
Right.
See, and now all of a sudden, and the lead officer in Ezell's killing had prior contact with Ezell.
Right.
You arrested him for being in a van smoking weed. Okay, then you come back 2-3 years later and you kill him. Okay, and your little rookie, which they said the rookie was dirty too, but this is the point that they felt, this is a lie they told. He reached for our gun. See, and that's always a dang excuse.
Yeah, but this is other thing.
If it leads to a bigger problem is population control of the black man, and so they knew he was safe. That's why they targeted him. They knew he was safe. Yeah. They knew he wasn't no threat. They knew they weren't going to have any loss of life or anything. So they waited for the right time and the place, and they took him out.
In the Ezell case, we went over and talked to the community the day after, and the young brothers that were up the block, that were friends of his, that took care of him, that were heartbroken that he got murdered that way. Their whole thing was outrage.
Absolutely.
Those cops passed us, and we was a group down here on the corner. Why didn't they hassle us?
Right.
They just drove by us and spot him down there by himself, walking alone, and they targeted him. For what reason? For what reason? He was just walking alone. He had no weapon, no cell phone, no weed. So why did you single him out?
And that's why it's so important for us to become an organized community again. Okay. Because that organization is not just going to help protect our lives. It's going to allow us to grow businesses. If we do have almost 3 million black people or over 2 million black people in the state of California, we're going to be spending billions. Mm-hmm. We're going to be spending billions a year. So that means we can support a number of black businesses. Like when you look at the numbers, they say blacks in America spend like $1.2 trillion a year. This is what we actually spend. And 2% of that goes to the black community, to black-owned businesses. So just if we got that number to 10% and not 2%, we're talking like over $80 billion extra to the black community. And, what that means in 50 states, it's over $1 billion a state. And then when you break it down further, like, all right, it ain't a whole lot of people in Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. So it ain't a whole lot of black people in those states. So what we're talking about for the states where black people are actually populated, we're talking about multiple billions of dollars of increased revenue a year just if we spent 10% of the money we spend with black businesses.
Right.
So some of that, we just can't, right? There's no black-owned Department of Water and Power.
Yeah,
so, there's there might be a black-owned car dealership, but there's no black-owned car company that I know of.
In the BC days, before crack, we had all of that.
Yeah,
But the crack years took all of that, took our car dealerships, took our black-owned businesses,
mechanics and
and we've been fighting this war, this drug war that's been working against us, and killing our people and sending our men to the cemetery and prison, and it's been devastating. And there really wasn't a moment for us to push black-owned businesses.
Yeah, there wasn't, but
it is now.
It is now, and it's not just black-owned business or black gun ownership. It has to be, I think, a shift in consciousness. I think for so long we have legitimately been victimized.
Yes,
and the story of our victimization was empowering to a certain point, to where I remember as a kid, I knew I was going to go to jail at one point, because that's what, revolutionary black men did. That's what happened to them.
Yes.
So, it was like a rites of passage. But now I'm like, I don't never want to see the inside of jail again. No. That don't mean it won't happen, because I'm not going to back down but so much.
Right.
Just understand that it's not something that I glorify in any kind of way. Even though I will stand with someone who stood up for themselves or their people and ended up in jail. That's one thing, but just going, that's like not cool to me anymore.
No.
But just overall, the spirit of fear, I think we need to get out of our community. And even the slaves or black people who have always been entrepreneurial. You go to Africa right now, wherever you go, you're going to see people using whatever they have. They're poorer than we've ever been, but they still using whatever they have to drum up some kind of business to earn enough to get some water, some food, do what they have to do to live their life, and enjoy their life as much as possible given the circumstances.
I want to jump in right quick, if you don't mind, because I know we're running short on time, but, because we got to get to the solutions part of this, because I know the viewers are going to say, okay, we know the issues, let's get to the solutions part of this. Cool, we got you. So the whole thing now, the reoccurring theme I'm hearing out of your comments is that we need to be organized, and so that's paramount to our community success. And so a lot of people are frustrated with the leadership that's in the black churches. It's just not cutting it. So I'm looking at it like now. I think it's going to be the activists and the attorneys that are going to have to organize to bring forth this new consciousness, what you were just speaking to moments ago. And so, matter of fact, I'll put it out there right now.
Renewed consciousness.
Renewed consciousness. Thank you. And I'm putting it out right now. I'm an activist and you're a lawyer. Let's come together and figure it out. We got a network of activists, Sister Herron, and then if you got these, fearless, black lawyers. We don't want no lawyers that can just go put some paperwork in and try to cop a plea deal. We talking about some lawyers that's really willing to fight. And, with the resistance. And so if you got a network like that, or if you think you can put together a network, I'll go any place, anytime, anywhere, and let's come together on some new solutions. Like it's a renewed consciousness so we can wake our people up, because I think that's, we're going to put a lot of fear too in terms of our systemic oppressors, is that if they know that we're lining up the activists and the lawyers are joining in solidarity, taking a stand, especially the black men, in solidarity on the front lines, and if they do anything wrong, we already got the lawyers that's going to sue you and back you up off you. So I mean that to me is a new look and a better lineup than what we've been doing and getting the same old results in the past.
And that's why it's so important for us to get our young men in earning money, right? Because one thing a lot of the activist community, at least here in Los Angeles, in my experience, one of their biggest differences between the 60s and 70s and now is that there's no money behind it, right?
No.
There's no, it's like all the people who are activists, that was like their side thing, but they were a plumber or a doctor or a lawyer. They made some money, and everybody contributed. It's like, okay, I'm not an activist, but the NAACP got funds and resources. The SCLC got donations and funds. Even the Nation of Islam, it was all about them and they're pulling their resources. Everybody from the nation gave to the pot, So now we have a strong economic backing and an economic base, and we have we have, to your point, I think it might be time for an actual new organization to emerge. But I do want to point out that we also have resources like Vector 90 is a new space right there. It's like Gramercy and 60th or 61st, right in that area.
But what is a Vector 90? It doesn't matter where it is if we don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, Vector 90 is a space for all creatives, but definitely for black creatives to use and utilize. They have state-of-the-art technology labs, computer labs and whatnot, and then they have just various spaces. So you can go, you can have your meetings, you can have your creative development programs. You can actually put on programs. There's space to have seminars and whatnot. So this is a resource in our community that we need to be utilizing. So, and then one of the guys involved with that is a black billionaire real estate developer out of New York, last name Peoples, I believe. So now if we can, we remember not Sidney Poitier, what's the other brother?
Harry Belafonte.
Harry Belafonte, and that whole Andrew Young, and there was the brother that was the head of the Black Porters. I forget, but there was money. There were black people with money behind this, right? And that's what we need to give. And a lot of people feel like if they have $5, that's not nothing, so I'm not going to give it. I'm going to just hold it because it's not nothing anyway. But if we got 1,000 people giving $5,000, I mean just $5, then that's $5,000. Then this month we can do something. We can put on programs. We can maybe feed the kids because the Black Panthers was feeding the babies. It wasn't free. But that's the kind of organizing we need to do to where we get the funds to support the programming, and that's what I think a lot of the activist community these days have forgotten. And I'm not trying to down anybody. I'm not trying to diss anybody.
We haven't forgotten. The whole thing is when you start collecting funds, especially, is a difference between nonprofit and grassroots. Where you going to house that money? What bankers, who you going to trust to hold the money? So right then and there, it's not that they're not giving it because it's too low. I don't trust you with my money.
That's right.
Or I don't trust you. We don't trust you with the community's money.
That's a
so
huge.
Now
that's a huge aspect, right? Because really you can't even have a relationship with two people without trust. So now we're supposed to build a community, and we don't have no trust. That is tough. And
the simplest way to resolve that, you have to have 3 treasurers. It has to be an odd number, whether it's 5. It can never be 2.
Right.
It can never be 1.
Right.
It has to be an odd number. See, so you can have that check and balance. Yeah. And I think that will help us a little bit better with our trust issues. Because right now, I'm one of those. Yeah. There is no one person that I trust to invest that with. You got to have something else.
And I agree. Like what organization would if I had like $1,000, I just want to give to somebody to help. What organization? Off the top, the first one that literally came to mind is Ceasefire. Okay, I think
even Ceasefire needs 3 treasurers.
And I'm not even sure what their financial situation is, where they bank. But if I wanted to,
we're talking about a new structure. Renewing the consciousness, and so the whole thing we have to ease the fears and concerns of the past. And
the way we get that,
3 treasurers.
We have programming
just to make sure that we don't have to stumble over that trust factor.
Right.
Because it's always a trust factor.
It's tough, man. I remember we organized. We raised like $12,000 in 2 weeks to take our football team out to Arizona for a bowl game, a youth football team, 12-year-olds, and it was a great time. But man, once the money started rolling in, it just caused a lot of problems upon the adults, talking about like what you doing with the money and yada yada this and yada yada that. So I get it, but one thing I do know is that we can't move off of fear. And we can't move, and well, that's the main thing. We can't move off of fear
And lack of trust.
and lack of trust. Right? We have to find somebody that we can identify with, somebody we can trust, and just go out there.
Brother. It's you. You finna lead this effort. You saying all the right things. For one, you have the credentials. You're a bona fide lawyer. Two, you saying you're part of the resistance. You called yourself an abolitionist, and you're talking about renewing the consciousness of the black people. And you know all the data statistics. You've been doing a wonderful presentation. Now, as I understand, you got to earn your keep and provide for your families. You got your time is restricted, but in the off times, we need you.
And I appreciate that, and I've been there a lot. But at the same time, I've been there for people where they've done protesting, and then it's like you want the attorneys to come, and you want us to come to the meetings and organize and then represent the people, and nobody got no money for nothing. Like that's not how it was back in the day. The NAACP showed up. But it wasn't you didn't pay the top dollar. And I'm not asking you for top dollar, right? But I'm asking you for something because I'm doing what I paid a couple $100,000 to learn how to do.
Let me say this. I don't want to bang on the NAACP, but we need...
I was talking about the old NAACP. I want to be clear.
It still is. Well, I just want to interject that we need a new...
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. But what I was saying,
they need to be a part of it, and I really believe that our young people have the answers. They know what they don't want. Okay, can we get them with something that's going to appeal to them? So I'm sitting in their yard right now. I'm not with the NAACP. I'm not with the elders. I'm with the young people because they're our future. And anybody that doesn't understand it, they don't really understand what we need to be doing.
And I agree with that. But what I find the biggest detriment to the progress of the black community that I see is who I've called, and I believe I've stated this on this show before, the janky big homie. Right? Because this is the one that's like, just stealing our baby souls. And they out there, he got a little talent. Did that time just fly like that?
It flew like that, huh?
Did that just happen?
Yes, sir, did.
It's flying.
And you big homies need to take a step back. Okay.
Well, May 19th, right here on 43rd and Degnan. Okay. Come on out and learn, because the point of this, we're having the full discussion. The first part of it is the history of the black community and the Second Amendment. The second part is all the safeties, rules, regulations, and guidelines to current ownership, safe storage, safe travel, how to get concealed carry permits, all of that. Right. And then the third element is the panel discussion, where we currently the panelists are Akil Bashir from PCITI, Brother Steve Mohammed from the Nation of Islam, Brother Jovan Blacknell, who's one of the best attorneys of our generation, but believes black people nobody should have guns. And then a Sister Geneva, who is her and her husband own they're own a gun shop in the Valley, Redstone Firearms.
Is there a website is a website about May?
There's a Facebook. There's a Facebook program.
Why don't you put it in my book and we'll post it with the
what is it listed under? So we let the folks know.
It's Blacks educated on the Second Amendment. Be informed, be trained, be free.
All right. So, well, family, we're out of time.
Oh, man, this was so good. I thought we was 20 minutes in.
I know, but no. See, that's the way it happens when the conversation is righteous.
Right.
Okay, and we are on point. We're on our issues, and we're looking for solutions, and that's what this is all about. So God bless you, community family. Pray for Hannah Bell's family and that we catch her killer. Indeed. Thank you for listening, and Gang Talk will be back next week.